So now we are ready to take everything back to Maya. So first thing we need to do is create the color map. Let me disable the grid there. So to create the color map, first you want to be at the highest level. So let's go ahead and do that. So if we go to our texture map, we have the option new from polypaint. That's what we want to choose, but first you want to make sure that you know what resolution you've taken this out as. So you have the options of 512, 1024, 2048 and 4096. So normally the best choice is to choose the highest resolution, because you can always get that to a lower resolution back in Photoshop. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna leave it at 2048 for now. You can choose 4096. Again, you can always make the textures lower resolution back in Photoshop if you wanted to. So easiest way, just click new from polypaint. By the way, your model has to have UVs. As we remember, we did create the UVs once we were back in Maya. So here you can see that that's how our texture looks like. So now to export this, first you have to click where it says clone texture. Okay. And now our texture is right here under our textures. But now to export that, we have to go to texture. But first we have to flip V, because the texture is flipped in Zbrush, and in Maya it's the other way around, so we have to flip that. So now that our texture has been flipped, just go to export and you're going to save it. And you can save it as Photoshop or all these options. Photoshop, it tends to be a good one. So again, to do that, just go first check that you want the size that you want the texture to be, and then new from polypaint, clone texture, go to texture, flip V and export. And if you want to continue to paint on this, make sure that you disable the texture here. Okay, so that's how you get our color map, our diffuse map. So now we want to get a bump map. I'm going to use a normal map for Maya. Let's create a normal map. To create a normal map, you have to be at the lowest subdivision level. Okay, so go to level 1. That's our lowest subdivision level. So now first we have to make sure it's tangent space normals. Normally you want to set smooth UVs to be enabled, but in our case I find that since our model is symmetrical, there's a seam in the middle here, and if we enable smooth UVs, you're going to kind of see a seam there. So I'm going to disable that, and this is pretty much it, and just create normal map. So now once the normal map has been created, you see that it's right here. Now to export the normal map, you want to click where it says clone normal map. Again, it's the same process as we did with the diffuse map. So now go to texture, make sure to flip V. It's really difficult to see, but it's flipped. Now export that. Now you can use a Photoshop or any of these. I'm actually going to save it as a TIFF. So let's just disable the normal map here. If you wanted to create a displacement map, it's pretty much the same. You would click, you can change the accuracy, probably click on 32-bit and just create an export. And you can actually flip V from here. So I'm only going to use a diffuse map and normal map. So now that we have those, we can go ahead and take our, we have to export our model because we post the model, of course. So to export the whole mesh, go to export. Now we want to make sure that group is not enabled, and export that, and it's going to export that as an OBJ. So that is actually everything we need to do in Zbrush for now, and you can pretty much go to Maya and import. So I'm going to show you that in a minute here. So now that we're back in Maya, we want to make sure that we import the model. So we go to File, Import, and just look for that model. It's the OBJ one. Okay, so this is huge. It looks huge for now. So first I'm going to Window, Settings, Preferences, and change settings to meters. Press 5 for shaded mode. Now the texture that comes with when you bring something from Zbrush, it looks pretty almost like a blend material. I'm actually going to change it and assign the Lambert, assign existing material Lambert 1. I'm also going to smooth normals. So you go to normals, set normal angle, set that to 180 so that it looks more smooth. We also want to make sure that everything is there, everything that is with the model. So now we want to apply the textures to the model. First I'm going to delete my history. Go to delete by type history. I'm actually going to rename this. Go to Lambert, and to get the color, click on the checkered box for color, and just look for, we're going to choose PSD because that's how we saved it as. It's a Photoshop file, and click on the folder here and load it. So now that it has been loaded, first I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to, for some reason when you attach a Photoshop file, you kind of create some transparency to it. So I'm going to right click and break connection so there's no transparency there. I'm going to click here or just press 6 so that we actually see we have our diffuse color for the model. So now that that's done, we're going to apply the normal map. So under bump map, click here. I saved it as a TIFF, so I'm going to select file instead of Photoshop file. And here you're going to make sure to change to tangent space normals. Now click on this arrow and load the image. So now we have our bump, and if you kind of want to see it, you can press here for higher quality. You can kind of see that we have some bumped areas here, so we get some of that detail back in Maya, even though this is a lower subdivision, lower division model. And it was set to a 2048, I believe, so we get more of that detail. So now we probably just want to kind of create a really easy, quick render. Now I'm not going to go really in detail as to how to get like a super awesome render, just going to be a really quick render. So first I'm going to create light. Let's just use the directional light, should do a good job. Scale that up so we can see it, and this is going to be our key light. So if we wanted something like rotate that, you can actually start to kind of test render to see how that looks. Make sure we're working with mental ray. Now you see that I want to select mental ray, but it's not available, so I'm going to Window, Settings, Preferences, and Plugin Manager. Now they made it easier to find it, a 13 version, so you go all the way down, it's right here, Maya 2 MR. Close that. Now we can select metal ray right here. Probably want to get closer to the model and start to test render and see how that looks. I probably want to get it the other way around, perhaps something like that. Yeah, I think I like that kind of light better. So now that we have that, we probably create a, so this is our key light. We want to create maybe a more of a, let's create a directional light as well. Let's set it. I'm going to create a fill light. And for directional lights, it doesn't matter where it is in the viewport. All that matters is what direction it is pointing. And for this light, I want to set it to a lower intensity. Let's get that lower. And for our key light, we probably want to go a little higher and maybe add a little color to it. And now let's test render this. See how it looks. Not too terrible. And now we want to get a rim light. So for a rim light, we go to create lights. We're going to use a spotlight. Scale that so that we can see it. Now for spotlight, it does matter where it is placed. We're going to use ray trace shadows, so you don't have to place the spotlight too far away. Probably want the spotlight to be a rim light to be in the horizon over there, pointing this way perhaps, and set the intensity a little higher. Let's do some test render. I don't see anything, so let's crank up the intensity. We're starting to see some, highlights. Set it a little higher. And you see that we start to get those highlights. Maybe get it a little higher. I mean, we can get this one closer to the model since we're going to be using ray trace shadows. I don't think it should be a real problem if it's a little close to it. Only if you're using depth map shadows, you want it to be really far away so that you get a better looking shadows. So now you see that we're getting a rim light for it. I still think it's a little not too happy with the where it's at. Maybe this way. So this is where you just twinkling some things until you get to a point that you're kind of happy what you're getting. I kind of want to get some rim lights in the head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this one that area. And actually I'm going to decrease the intensity slightly, change the color. Test render. Now I'm going to, since I want to get some rim light for the head as well, I'm going to Control D to make a duplicate of this one. I'm going to do some cheating here. And move this one this way so that I can get some rim light for the head area. I'm going to rotate that. Let's test render this. See what we're getting. So I'm kind of getting a little more Let's say this, a little more rim light there. Although I'm still getting more here as well, so probably want to reduce the intensity there. Maybe if I get this higher. So this is just basically what you're doing. It's just testing until you get something that you like. Still think that I can get more rim light for the neck here. And I'm still not getting too much for the head, so maybe we can get it closer here. Test render. Maybe move that down slightly. Do another test render. So this is pretty much, we're just testing, see till we get something that we really like. Now I'm getting too much of that light hitting the frontal area, so pretty much don't want that. So I'm gonna have to move it back again. So I'm starting to get in there. Still not too happy with the results here. Also, we can kind of see the spotlight there. Probably want to increase the penumbra here. Maybe drop off slightly. Maybe that was too much. So maybe going to make another one, just so I can get the results that I'm looking for. So it's starting to look better. For this one I'm going to reduce the intensity here. Slightly higher. So let's just say that you're happy with your render here. Now first thing you want to make sure you do is for your lights. First of all, for the key light, and make sure that you enable shadows. So you go to shadows. I'm going to use ray trace shadows. I'm going to increase the angle here, maybe 3. To get a better results, you got to crank up the shadow rays or a higher level. And I think the rim light also needs to have shadows enabled. Let's go ahead and do that. So once you have shadows enabled, you should be getting a fairly decent result from what we were getting here. Still really fast renders. I mean, you can continue to add some of the rim lights here to get better, to define the contour of that area a little better. But you can see that we're still getting that detail thanks to the normal map that we're using. And once you're happy with the results, you can always crank up the render resolution to production quality. You can choose production here. So that's pretty much it for the renders, and again, this was just a really quickly show you how to do some really quick renders in Maya. I would probably recommend that you change the background color and add maybe a plane to get like a shadow. If you want to change the background color, click on the camera attributes. You can always change the background environment, change that to whatever you want. So this is pretty much it. This is how you bring it back to Maya. We're still having those details here. We're getting those details back in Maya with our diffuse map. So this is where our tutorial series ends. So I hope you enjoyed it. You enjoyed and learned something new, how to model and texture and bring everything back to Maya.